Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast with Logan, Dre, myself, and longtime friend David Moore.
Thanks
you,
for having
David.
me, guys.
Thank you for coming on. David is the co-founder and chief marketing officer of New Matter Men's Products. So, David, I know you've had a crazy story coming up and what has led you to where you are now, of course, and we've been friends since high school. So let's start it off with introduction of David and your story of what has led you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, first of all. After high school, went to school out in Boston, had a startup during college that was focused on kind of like the payment space. After school, started at a tech startup in sales and really got my start as a salesperson. Then transitioned from working at the tech startup into consumer packaged goods, which is kind of the category of anything that you see that is literally comes in a package and is a good that you buy, whether online or at the grocery store or wherever it might be. When a good buddy of mine from college had been in that industry and hired me to work alongside him at a company that was also making men's products, but was sold in barbershops and salons and stuff across the country. After working at that company for a while, we sort of realized that the industry was evolving in an interesting way, and then left and later on started this brand to kind of fill a new space in that category. I've basically transitioned a while ago from sales into marketing, and now am working as the chief marketing officer of this company I co-founded, and really just focusing on all of our efforts to find new customers and develop new products and all that fun stuff. So
I'm going to rewind a little bit.
Sure.
I won't say Kearney High School is the most interesting thing in the world, but I'll say where you went to college was very interesting.
Yeah, so I went to a small college outside of Boston that's really focused on entrepreneurship. So you can only major in business, and then most of the courses are designed around managing a company, starting a new business, things of that nature. I know Dre studied that a little bit as well in school. But yeah, it's one of the best schools in the country for that, and it was a super interesting experience just getting to meet people that had a lot of different interests. And, one of the reasons I think what you guys are doing is good is no matter what service or product you're offering, a lot of the questions that company founders or owners have to ask themselves are the same, right? It's understanding the fundamentals of business. It's understanding all of these different areas of the company and how to manage them as you're growing. So it was a cool experience in that I got to meet people with that same kind of thing that they wanted to do, but in super different areas. So people in all different kinds of industries, and then it's neat to learn from people that are working on stuff that's different from you, for sure.
Yeah, and it was something I know we've had a ton of conversations about the people you got to go to school with.
Yeah.
You saw a whole different level of the world that a lot of people don't.
Yeah, for sure.
That don't get their eyes open to that aren't dealing with business startups all the time, there's a whole different understanding of business from that forefront.
Yeah, 100%. And I think those are two kind of different worlds that interact a little bit, but like if you're starting a startup and you're trying to go kind of like the venture capital route and you're raising a bunch of money and trying to get acquired in a super short time frame, or if you're starting a small business where you don't plan on bringing any partners in, you want to own 100% of it. Some of the people that you guys have already interviewed probably aren't trying to take on new investors necessarily or have anyone want to buy them out. They're maybe continuing a family business or wanting to build a business that they hope their kids will come back and work in one day. And those are different kinds of goals and different kinds of plans for how you grow the company, for sure. So there were also a lot of people that I went to school with that had family businesses that were trying to learn enough about management to go back and work in them, for sure. So both of those things are super good paths. They're just definitely different in the kinds of challenges that you might face.
So I think in that venture capitalism side that you have, where these people are going out raising all this money, what do you see on a growth side of companies running that route?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, tech companies that raise a lot of money, like, they're growing at an incredible pace, and they're really trying to either own their category or go to zero doing that, right? That's the expectation from their investors, and that's their goal. So they're trying to hit really, really strong growth numbers, even if they're losing money doing it, right? Whereas a small business owner or medium-sized business owner that's not trying to sell the company is focused on, how do we make sure that everything's still profitable? How can I keep an eye on my finances? How can I understand if I'm investing in a new product, or if I'm investing in working on a new marketing activity, how can I make sure that I'm getting more back for that dollar and have a plan behind it? And obviously, if you're doing a venture-backed startup, you're doing that too, but just from a different angle, because you're hoping that you'll get so big that later you'll be able to find margin or get acquired because you're taking market share from someone that wants to buy you.
So when you go into that, and that's not a space that
Right.
I'm educated on, or really any of us, that I learn all that stuff from you. And with them having that large influx of operating money, what are they spending that on?
Mostly growth activities. I mean, it depends. It depends on the company, but a lot of companies are trying to grow at a pace that they couldn't grow at profitably, and then figure out how to create cash flow later. And to be fair, that's not what my business partner and I are doing with our new business. We've mostly fundraised from individuals and angel investors that either knew us previously or have some exposure to the industry and understand kind of our vision for the business. Mm-hmm. So we have taken on outside investment, but our goal is still to grow a really large, profitable company. But keep an eye on that, because in physical goods, if you're selling a physical product, you can't go and manufacture margin later. Like the idea that you're going to get in every store and then raise your prices a whole bunch to then become profitable is not accurate. And in software, companies can kind of do that. If you're using an app that you really like and then it got $3 more a month, you might be okay with that. Like that can happen more. There's less elasticity with physical goods. So it's more about building a sustainable business. We're trying to be profitable as soon as possible after our launch, so that we can grow sustainably and use that profitability to continue growing, to invest in new products, to reach new customers, and do that kind of thing.
So since you're not taking that approach to growth that you talked about that they're doing, how have you tried to translate some of that into the strategies and methods that you're using?
Yeah, I think it's the exposure to that has been interesting, because it's when people are really going for that huge, crazy goal, it opens them up to thinking about their business in a different way. And I think a lot of the business owners that you guys have interviewed honestly already think that way, right? They have a super positive outlook. They have a really ambitious attitude towards what they're doing. And that's why they've become so successful with you all, right? But sometimes people don't think about their business that way, right? They might have gone to work with someone, or, gotten thrown into a family business and thought, well, I don't know kind of what direction this is going in. I think one of the huge takeaways from companies that are really trying to own a space is like, think as big as you can. Think about the impact that you could have if you really changed a space, and think about how you could really create something that your customers love, not just making something that's like 2% better.
Yeah. And you kind of touched on something there on knowing direction, that with a lot of businesses that we work with, when we meet with someone that knows their direction very well, it's crazy how well their marketing does it. It's crazy how their business grows and just excels, because they have that direct path of understanding where they're going.
Yeah.
It also helps when they know their brand too. They have a clear brand identity, and they know what they stand for and what they're aiming to do.
So I know you guys have worked a lot on that brand identity.
Yeah.
So what's that kind of look like on your forefront as a nationwide company?
Yeah, 100%. So we sort of realized that there was an opportunity, and it's an interesting space for sure. Guys are starting to care more about their appearance, but there's really kind of two categories of brands for men's personal care products. And they're the giant brands that everybody knows and is familiar with that advertise mostly through humor, right? Through having like a funny ad on TV or things like that. And they have huge awareness, but to be fair, they're not super high quality products. And then there's high quality products, but oftentimes they present themselves in like a confusing way to the consumer, or it's not approachable, or sometimes because of the people that envision the brand, you know, they come from this angle of like wanting you to learn a lot and become an enthusiast of the product in such a way that it's really, really difficult for the customer. And what we think is you should be able to take really good care of your hair and skin without having to learn a crazy amount. And that sounds really simple, but it's not really true in our industry.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how few like luxury cars would get sold if you had to like become a mechanic to buy a Mercedes. Like that's a ridiculous thing to ask.
None of them.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous thing to ask your customer. So it's a great product.
Yeah.
If you want to get super into ingredients and research and stuff, it would all check out. But you also cannot think about it and just see a really good result from it. And I think our angle is more like there is simplicity in luxury, and as guys, we don't necessarily want to become like a recreational consumer of this category. We just want to get a good result out of their product and have it do something for you.
So when you talk about the care products just in general, the men's space is lacking. And what made you want to go into men rather than women when you know the women's side's booming and very tapped and been very profitable?
Yeah, both are growing a lot, really. Our experience was, you know, really as I talked about, you know, going through my career, the shift I moved was from, you know, software sales into selling for that other brand to national retailers, so managing national retail accounts. And then as part of that experience, my business partner and I helped manage 2 barbershops, one in Philadelphia and one in Washington, D.C. And we actually spent a lot of time hanging out in the barbershops because we don't like have a background in cutting hair. We're not barbers or anything like that. But that's where you're selling their products. You want to meet those people and figure out, you know, what are their problems? What are they seeing? That's how things are changing and stuff like that. We realized that there was this huge shift that guys were asking for better quality products. They were asking more questions. And they wanted more, and girlfriends wanted to buy nicer products for their boyfriends and things like that. And there was just kind of this gap in that. And I think we felt like we could make a lot of progress and provide a significantly better product and brand experience. Whereas the women's side, I mean, I know people that run fantastic women's brands, but I don't have any insight on how I would make a great product in that space. I don't know what problem I would solve or what I would do better or anything like that. Some of managing a product business is the same, right? Mm-hmm. You have to understand, you know, how do I manufacture a product? What does it cost me to manufacture it? What does it cost me to go out and find a new customer? Those fundamentals are the same, but really our brand was driven around actually talking to customers and realizing that there were a lot of guys that wanted a better product, but didn't want to go out and learn a crazy amount to do it. It had to be convenient and had to be a good experience. You can't have, you know, some of the legacy brands in the category you're going to purchase, it's going to come like 15 days later. You're not excited to get something 15 days when you're living in an Amazon world, right? Yeah. So we have 3-day nationwide free shipping on every order, even if you're a single SKU. So just recognizing kind of that gap and then feeling like we could do a better job solving it. And I think that's something that anyone that's wanting to start a business should pay attention to. You shouldn't start something for the sake of starting it. You should start something because there's a problem that you're solving and that you found other people have that same problem as you, and you figured out, okay, I think I can provide a better solution to that. And you have to have a personal insight on what you're going to change about it or what you're going to deliver in a different way. If you just went out and said, I want to sell some product online, you're going to have a really hard time because you don't know why anyone's buying what they're buying now.
Then you're going to wonder why they're not buying your product.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense.
Whether it's product development or you're selling as like an individual salesperson or you're working in marketing, I think people kind of overthink it and they think, well, if I was really good at, if I was like an incredibly good speaker, I would be a good salesperson, or if I was really good at design, I would be a better marketer. I think the key to all of that is really just having empathy for your customer and actually understanding what is that person that I'm trying to help's real problem, and then solving what they want you to solve, not what you want to produce because it's an idea in your head.
And that's when we stepped into what we're doing now. That was right out the gate, that every single account we take on, that first thing that we do is figure out what that problem is that can be solved.
Right.
And when you start with that, sales becomes easy.
And you've literally all worked inside of small businesses before.
Yes.
So you understand what it's like to get up in the morning, to go to the location that you work in and say, like, we need to get more customers today.
Yeah.
Right? And that Walmart, to be fair, asked the same question, right? The CEO of Walmart still wakes up and asks, like, how do we get more people in the doors? But it's a totally different scenario than if you're an operator of a company, you're opening a restaurant, you're opening a retail store, you're opening a dealership or whatever it is that you're working on. You have to go make that happen, and you know what that feels like, and you know what it's like to interact with those customers.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier to come up with ways to make the customer experience better.
Yeah.
Because you've been there.
If you're taking care of that problem solving comes in marketing on every aspect you just listed out. That when you're selling and you're solving someone's problem, I think so many people in sales, like you were saying, they think they know someone's problem before they ever even speak.
Yeah.
And I have the fault of it. When I first started selling, I assumed all the time that I understood what that person's objections were when they came in.
Right.
I think that's what everyone did right when they start sales.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell you something. I don't think you need it, but you want it.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, some really small percentage of salespeople can be successful just through being really persistent and aggressive. But I don't necessarily think it's the best experience for the customer. And I think very few people have the temperament to do that, and they're going to find it like unbelievably draining. And I think if you just gave me 50 people and said, like, how can you get these people to be better at selling? I would say, like, get them better at listening. Like, they'll figure out
100%.
what people are actually looking for first, and instead of just being like, I like this thing, I think you should buy it. And that's not really how persuasion works.
I think that, like, that person that just has over-the-top persuasion, that doesn't really have the empathy side or the problem-solving side, I think they can only sell up to a certain dollar amount.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't build long-term trust.
Yeah.
I think it's a trust issue. If you're running a business and your top producing salesperson has that personality, that might be fine for a certain time being. But as you guys know, I think there's always this question of, like, if I'm hiring new people, how do I train someone who, is friendly, nice to sit down and have a conversation with, but they haven't been in this role before? How do I get them to be better at sales? And I think the answer is not, like, convince them to be a lot more aggressive than they naturally are.
Yeah,
probably.
You can tell whenever in anything you work with a sales rep, whether they want it for themselves or they're actually trying to help you.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever someone cares about you, they're going to take the time to ask the questions and get the right product for you.
Right.
And I think a lot of times in sales, they say a lot of times the best salesperson is the one that asks the most questions. When I train salespeople in the car business, we focus so much on having these guest assessments done on every single person. And there's so many salespeople that are like, well, this is dumb, I don't want to do this. But they would have all this information that would make the whole process so easy. And sometimes somebody would say we had a person came in and said they wanted an Edge. They had 2 kids, they're about to have a third one. You're not fitting 3 kids in the back of an Edge comfortably. They've been to 4 other dealerships. We were the only dealership to listen to all these things, and they ended up buying a Flex instead. But it's because we were the first dealership to actually listen to them instead of just let them drive all of our Edges and try to sell them an Edge.
Yeah.
And you start listening to those people and you care for them. Those people bought every single vehicle after that from us.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we've seen both sides of that, because we've seen people that listen, and we've also seen the people that they are. If you could just watch a movie on how you should do sales back in the 80s, it is straight up
that classic.
It's sitting there. You come
Boiler
in. It's
room.
like you sit down with them. You're leaving in a car,
Right.
and it's something. But they never saw return customers. Nothing. Their main goal every month was 20 plus new customers. Only goal. And they would achieve it, but none of those people ever came back to that individual because they never built up that trust. The second you left the lot, they're like, okay, we're done. We've seen that side, and then we've seen the person where it's like, hey, I need to get my car in for an oil change 3 years down the road. They're like, all right, for sure, let me handle that for you. Just that customer care goes so far, I think, in every industry. Just we we ordered business cards the other day. I messed up on my end. Cards didn't come in as we liked. Got in contact with them, and as Dan said, he's like, that's probably the best customer service.
I will shout out Vistaprint for this 100%. We ordered plastic business cards. We had $1,500 worth of cards show up that were completely wrong. Mm-hmm. I was like,
that was me.
I call customer service. I say, hey, you know what? I think this was our fault. They're just not right. I was just trying to figure out how I could just adjust it and duplicate the whole order to order them again.
Was the whole card just like a picture of Dre's face? Like,
you're welcome.
The writing was like this big, so you had to get like a telescope to read our phone numbers.
Right. And
they're like, no problem. Like, we guarantee customer satisfaction. Sends us a whole new order that same day with increase in font.
But see, now you will order so much other stuff from them.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And even when you think about that business that maybe has the individual salesperson or just any individual that's interacting with your customer, it could be a waiter at a restaurant, right? If you're actually giving that best experience, you're going to tell your friends about it. If you have a family member that's looking for whatever that business offers, you're so much more likely to be like, hey, this guy or this lady did an amazing job. Yeah, even one of our goals, which is like, it's a little bit quantitative and a little bit qualitative, is like we want to be the most referred brand in our space, so that if people are looking for what we offer, which is a really premium product, it's kind of like, I don't know what the equivalent in another category would be, maybe Yeti or something. We're like, you don't necessarily, not 100% of people want the super premium product, but if you want the really good product, it's super well known as to where you would go. That's our goal 10 years from now.
So every space you walk into, that you are that
top and just
tier
that you
on
have,
every shelf.
Just that you have that reputation of where, to your point with your experience that you just had, it's doing that over and over and over again as a business owner that creates trust, right? Mm-hmm. Is just doing right by people again and again and again, and making sure that you take care of the customer and provide them a really good high quality product. You're never going to like create a huge business by like tricking people. That's just not a real thing.
Those are called pyramid schemes.
It works, trust me.
Or like doing something that seems like, oh, this is going to be really exciting, and then you get that package delivered to your house and you're like, this is terrible, this piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's not going to actually be here 3 years from now.
Because that person's not ordering again.
No, and they're not going to go to their friend and say like, this was really cool, or this thing worked really well, or whatever it is.
You hit growth, and no one's buying.
Yeah.
That drop is hard.
Yeah, and I think you see that too in consumer goods a little bit. If you think about people that do drop shipping or things like that, and they're just selling like a gimmicky thing that then breaks or isn't a fun experience for their customer, they're doing a 6-month business. They're not building a sustainable brand. And I think you guys have done that a little bit with your model here too, with how you trust in your clients more than a lot of agencies do. Because
we do payments in the rear.
I have literally never heard of an agency doing that.
Yeah.
I told my business partner about that today. I was like, he's like billing them like after he's run all the ads. And I was like, no one does that.
And it was something when I started, I think I had every single person tell me I was doing it wrong.
Every single one.
And everyone's like, you're crazy. Like that's not going to work. Like that's a terrible idea.
And how many times have you not been paid?
One time.
Yeah.
And we have 50 plus accounts now, and we're invoicing every 2 weeks we have first accounts and 15th accounts.
Okay.
And to date, one person hasn't paid us, and guess what? I look at it as that person needs money more than I do.
And if you were not delivering on what you've told the business owner, your offering was, by the way, that number would be higher. Like you would have like a third of people don't pay you because you would get to the end of the month, you'd be like, they didn't do any of the stuff they told me they were going.
And the sad thing was like, that was one of few actual like products that we took on. And the whole reason that we didn't continue working with them was because their ordering of product was, they were out of it. And then they wait for it to come back, and then they would sell, and they just weren't.
A lot of product companies function that way. Your supply chain and inventory is one of the hardest aspects of that business. Again, when you talk about why did my business partner and I start this new company, part of it's because we had years of experience in this space. So when we went to go formulate these products and manufacture these products, we just went back to like 7 or 8 manufacturers that we had worked with previously and had them create formulas, and then thought about like, of these people that we've worked with, who's delivering the most consistent quality? Who do we know we can work with? If everything goes right and we become a big company, can they produce enough for us?
Yeah.
And then how are they producing it? You know, do they view their business long term? Are they taking care of their employees? Do they have kind of values that we think are good values also in a business? But inventory management is super hard, and just understanding your costs. I mean, if I had one piece of advice to small businesses that might be watching this, or startups that might be watching this, is like really understand your accounting, because it's so important.
Yeah.
And particularly on the small business side, I think a lot of startups, they're already focused on that. But if you own a restaurant, or you own a service business or anything like that, and you don't have a CPA, like, go hire one tomorrow, particularly with inflation.
Yeah.
Like, it is so, you know, I live downtown, and sometimes I'll go out to dinner and I'll be like, this was the same expense as like a fast food meal. And I was like, what? Like, McDonald's buys hamburgers cheaper than this restaurant that like has an interior build out and like waiters did. So like, you're losing money and you don't know it yet. I think that's so important for small businesses to understand. And I think when you're driven by passion, it can be easy to ignore or put off really understanding the fundamentals of your business.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things you can do is understand, when you're serving that customer, are you creating enough free cash flow to grow the business, to grow the experience, to keep everything going?
I think as a small business owner with a lot of growth very quickly,
Yeah, that's what you've dealt with. Yeah.
it's been a very eye-opening experience of understanding that cash flow with 7 of us
Right?
at Moss Marketing Group now. It's something that just employee cost is something that
And billing in the rear.
billing in the rear, because a lot of times with the hardest month we've had since we've been open was the busiest month we've ever had of onboarding accounts.
And that's super true for a bunch of companies. And it can be such a wake-up call and confusing, because you could see how busy your business is, whether that's you guys taking on all these new clients, or it's someone seeing their restaurant be super packed. And then they look at their actual accounts and they're like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
And it's this
You're,
huge...
you're watching this just plummet
Yeah.
when you have ad spend going out the wazoo across all these
So
platforms.
you have to understand that.
And
Yeah.
I understand it, as I never look at, I think most people, if they sat in my shoes and they looked at 30-day cycles, I don't know, they wouldn't be able to handle it, because
Yeah.
the stress side that comes with
They
it.
probably throw up.
Yeah, they would look at it and they'd be like, what? Like, just
The
because
average person.
the influx that goes out so fast with us covering ad spend on our side, which is another thing that a lot of companies don't do.
Right?
A lot of agencies have it set to where they have a cost, and ad spend is not included in that.
Yeah.
You put your card on there, you pay for all your ad spend, you're just paying the company to manage it. So that's what we've seen from a lot of other agencies, and I'm like, we want to have full control over that A to Z.
Yeah.
We'll pay for that. It's included in our price, everything of that nature, which is different. But we take on a company, February, for instance, Ricky, Lauren, both start. We take off like a rocket ship February 1st.
Yeah.
We onboard all these accounts, and not small accounts either. We were onboarding big accounts. As these huge accounts were coming in, the ad spend side climbed so fast. And I was like, oh my gosh. And checks just keep going out as fast, and checks aren't coming back yet.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're looking at what's out there owed to you, and you're like, that's where sometimes it gets a little nerve-wracking.
Hit triple
It's-
digits real fast. You're going, wait a second.
You're like 6 figures out there owed to you within 20 days. Like, we had 6 figures plus owed to us, so we're like, well, that money's going to be here. It's just not here yet.
When you're gonna offer a premium product or a premium service, there's so much legwork that goes into all the R&D and all of the planning and advertisement, brand development, and all of that stuff that you've done, and even for us with the billing in the rear, all the equipment that we run and everything. That's something that you definitely have to prepare for, and that's super important.
Well, I also think in being a business owner like you and Dane, you guys have stress on your shoulders and you guys have chips on your shoulders that no one else needs to know. So if something like that does become an issue, I know a lot of small business owners, they push that onto their employees. I've seen it happen more than I can count in more businesses I'm in every day. They sit there and like, you can tell when you walk in somewhere and someone's stressed about money, and as an owner, and then they trickle that down, I think that can deplete a company faster than anything. When that is not a positive atmosphere, that is somewhere where everyone's stressed, and then you make people desperate, and that's where you go back to chasing that business, not the way it should be, where you're treating the customer correctly and stuff like that. And I feel like you two both have been on a deal where if something like that did happen, no one knows until 6-12 months later.
Yeah, I mean, we're a little bit different because we communicate with our investors pretty regularly about that stuff. But I think to your point, the biggest thing that you have to think about that's so true is how do you align your business model with the experience that you want your customers to have, right? If you're going to provide a premium experience, you have to be able to invest in all of the things that make up delivering that to the end customer.
Yeah.
And that is more expensive. But I think on the reverse side, one of the hardest things that I think small businesses fall into is, if they're struggling with growth, they think they'll be the cheapest at something. And that's really unlikely. Like if you are operating a single store of something or you're just launching a new product, the idea that you're going to grow really quickly by being the least expensive option is a really hard path to pick.
Yeah. It's something I kind of dealt with it too when we got into this, that we have came out as a premium product for the Kansas City area.
Right.
Offering content, doing everything else that we do. No other agency of Kansas City offers what we offer. Mm-hmm. So we've came into a premium space, and I, in the beginning, thought, just from being an automotive background, we had to be at the same kind of pricing as everyone else, which I found out very soon to be wrong because we're just acquiring accounts so fast and giving so much more that we can be at a more premium price than the next person and still get it because we're offering so much more. We have that value built there. And I think same thing when it comes to products. When you have a better product than everyone, that's why I pay more money for this whiskey than I would a different one.
Right.
Because it's a premium product.
And it has to be significantly different.
Yeah.
I mean, we spend more on ingredients than many brands spend on like what they would sell to a retailer for. Like it's you're not talking about doing like one ingredient is better or one of your services is like a bargain. It's like, no, we're like 400 to 500% better. Like it's not even really dedicating yourself to being like, no, we're going to be the absolute best of this.
Yeah.
And then that price can become justified. If you were just like, it's really expensive and it turns out just our content is like really good, we're bad at everything else or vice versa. Yeah. People wouldn't buy it. The same way, you can't have a good product and bad shipping or really fast shipping on a terrible product or not, respond to customer requests quickly or whatever aspect of your customer experience that you want to hone in on. You have to kind of deliver all of it. The customer's smart. They're going to do their research. And if you're not really doing right by them, they'll go to someone else.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
I'd say today, this day and age, everything is online based. So everything nowadays, someone's going to do their research before they buy from you.
Right.
And I think that's where 20 years ago, completely different. They'll try you out and be like, hey, it's expensive, let me try it. Now everyone's like, goes, looks at reviews, looks at all that stuff, and they're like, well, everyone else says it's bad. I'm not going to give you a shot.
Right.
I think when you're a leader in a space, too, and you're the first one to do something in a market, you see others try to follow you and imitate you as well. We've seen it with other marketing companies, literally almost to the dollar, imitating our marketing plans that we have.
Mm-hmm. And
have you seen any of that? Or
I mean, we're really early, in our growth to have someone imitating exactly what we're doing wouldn't really be true. I think there are a lot of kind of middle market brands that are in a tough spot right now because they're all very similar to each other. So they're all just at the price point where they're doing like one or two things really well, and then the rest of it is not differentiated, and that makes it really hard to understand as the end customer. I think the higher end of the market in our space is relatively untapped, or it has some much older brands, but they don't have much awareness. Like even just thinking about the opportunity in this space, part of it's like, how many categories can even the average person not name any premium brand in?
How many people can name a marketing company in Kansas City?
Exactly.
That's where I had
the same opportunity.
Exact same thought process was when I was sitting at the dealership, and everywhere I went, people asked who did our marketing, and we had taken it over. And I had that same question over and over and over. And I couldn't even name a marketing company.
Right. But if you're doing a really good job at something, people will become aware of it.
Yeah.
So if there's no awareness of something, there's either there's no demand for it, which you can test pretty easily,
Yeah.
or there's just a huge gap, and the people that claim to be doing it well really aren't. So people aren't doing that word of mouth. They're not, if they're a business that's trying to grow, they're branching out and they're hiring an agency for the first time, then they're not going in and referring anyone to it. So then the agency doesn't develop a name for themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your reputation is built over all those interactions. It's a bunch of it kind of stacking on top of each other, not just doing a good job on a single instance. It's time.
So
Go for it.
I know that you guys are nationwide, but being in Kansas City in the Midwest, we're obviously a smaller market. I think with a lot of things, they start on the coast in these bigger cities, and you see them move inward on the country. So if you're in an area like Kansas City or like a St. Louis or in the Midwest, you really have an advantage, because if you look to these other cities like California, New York, Florida, Texas, all these bigger places, look at what they're doing. And if it's not here yet, there's your opportunity.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a lot because you lived in Miami for
2 years.
2 years. And
Lucky.
They always come back, though. They always come back to Missouri.
But we talked about a lot of times the things that were offered there.
Yeah.
And when we first started talking about me starting a marketing company, that's just when I was by myself, and I talked to David about it. And he goes, when you come to places like this, people don't open up the doors without thinking about marketing.
Right.
He goes, the Midwest is the only place in the country that people open up a business and just wait to hope for somebody to show up. And
Which is also the most endearing part, because they're just like wanting to be friends with their customers. So half of it's like the really good experience, but you also have to get people in the door.
and it really makes it's kind of funny when Logan was talking about all these marketing companies trying to duplicate our pricing, trying to duplicate what we're doing. And it leads all the way back to them not actually caring about their customer. Every single person that is here truly cares about the growth and the success of our business owners that we work with.
It goes back to the way that they sell. So something that I was going to say earlier is one of the best books that I ever had recommended to me was from a sales mentor that I haven't had in a previous role. And it's called The Challenger Sell. Have any of you guys read of it? So it's about like teaching, tailoring, and then taking control. So to do this, you have to have that knowledge and care about the customer that you're serving, to teach them about the product that you're offering, to tailor the experience to them, make it personal, and then to take control of it. So whenever you have that mom that's wanting the edge that only has 5 seats, but she's about to have a third kid, you have that strength and that skill to take control of that and to get her to something else. Mm-hmm. I think when you put all of that together, it's not about you, it's about the customer.
Coming down that, I tell people all the time that a lot of businesses, yourself, I mean, everyone we work with, have worked with marketing companies that all they focus on is these numbers.
It's really easy as a business owner, I think, to say, like, what would the ideal thing that I want to sell be? And that's not what your customer wants. And you can think about that at any part of your marketing activities, really. Even if you're just trying to launch like an email newsletter or something, and you're telling your customer, well, sign up for my newsletter. Well, no consumer has the problem of like, I want more email newsletters. Like that is literally not a customer
I
need.
have one email just for that stuff.
I love stuff coming in my mailbox.
Right, but I don't have enough emails. So
There's a reason all of us have 10,000 or more unopened emails.
Yeah.
Right, versus like, am I going to deliver some sort of content or some sort of value through that? And I think that's tough to execute as a business sometimes. But the thing that I would do if I was a smaller company is do something that's kind of like complementary, but not 100% about the business. Like if you're running the store, the deli or the grocery store or the butcher shop or something, don't make it about like, here are the products that I want to sell this week. Make it about like every Sunday we send out a recipe that was from a family that, you know, they really enjoyed, and here's how you make it. It's pretty simple, just in case you want to know about it. And that way you're actually delivering content that's valuable versus saying like, here's what I would like you to buy. And sometimes you can do that and it'll still work. Like it's totally fine to do direct response and heavy call to action, all that. But it can't be the only thing that you do unless you have a wild amount of demand and are a giant company.
And we were talking about that before the podcast even started.
Yeah, with content.
With the content, and also people going after that direct call to action at very bottom funnel. And we have calls with business owners all the time. They're like, well, we've used social media and we have used X, Y, and Z different platforms, and we're just not seeing the return. And we go look at their ads and everything that they've ran, and we can tell you within seconds why it's not working. They have no top funnel content. They have nothing about brand. So if I'm hitting you all the time, sign up today, sign up today, sign up today, sign up today, and I never give you anything beneficial to you, do I care about you?
Right.
All I'm caring is trying to get your money. And that's exactly what most people do marketing-wise, is just going after that person's dollar.
Yeah, and a lot of advertising is also just explaining how you're solving someone's problem.
Yeah.
Not just immediately asking for permission to do it. And I think that's a challenge. I mean, something that we learned when we were actually developing the brand, we did focus groups and we asked guys like, what do you think about subscribing to products? Like, because on the business side of things, you love to have subscription revenue because it's recurring, it's more predictable, it's fantastic to have. But the feedback we got from a lot of guys were like, a lot of us have subscribed to stuff that we got ads for, and then it wasn't very good quality, and then they rebilled me way higher than what the initial offer was, and then I forgot to cancel for a while, or it was like hard to cancel. And you see that in every industry. Like there's a nationwide newspaper that to cancel you have to call between 9 and 5. And their trial offer is like $4.99 a month, and then it's like $75 a month.
I had a subscription. I tried canceling last month, and it took me 3 weeks to get it canceled.
Right.
Because it was Monday to Wednesday,
There's
not even Monday to Friday.
Not even 5 days.
And I'm
week.
sitting there, I'm like, bro.
They get you to that 3-day free period, and then it automatically bills your card.
Right. So I think that kind of tactic in marketing is driven around, as the business operator trying to get more conversion, which is understandable. Everyone wants conversion, but you have to go back to like, is that transaction actually happening with the customer that you want? Is this someone that you're solving a problem for? And B, does it build any trust with them? Like, or are you not finding the right people yet? Like if you have to run an offer that's 90% off, and then you're rebilling it like 40 days later at an odd increment and hoping they don't see it, maybe you haven't solved anyone's problem.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can build a long-term brand that people love and recommend to the people that they're friends with or family members by doing that sort of thing. You have to be able to show how you solve the problem.
That sounds like every internet provider ever. Like, here's $50, but don't worry, every year it goes up $50.
I got a crazy offer. Yeah, I got like 75% of my internet in Visa gift cards back this year. And I was like, how is this a business?
My
Yeah.
point exactly.
David would be the only person
Because
to get money back on
They're
it.
billing.
Yeah, my internet's like $30 a month. I got like $300 in gift cards. I was like, you guys are not.
That's because
I
they're
don't get
billing
any.
me out in the rural area for $120, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't even play.
You're like, I only
anything.
have one option. Yeah.
Yeah, Drake ain't watching Netflix.
Hey, you drive like 1 mile over, you got Google Fiber.
That's the struggle of being a little bit outside the city for sure.
Yeah.
Life's about problem solving. I mean, something that my dad told me when I was little was like, you get paid in accordance with the level of problems that you solve.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll take that a step farther to say that that's true for like your reputation, your brand, just everything that you do.
Yeah.
If you're not solving problems and you're not actually focusing on that and providing value, you don't have anything.
I was listening to an audiobook the other night, and they were talking about, it was Alex Ramosey's book, and he was
Great
talking
book.
about the consulting side of things, how there's consulting agents out there that'll get $50,000 for a week of work.
Oh, yeah.
And they're so set in one area, but he goes, what people don't understand is how big a problem that person has.
Yeah.
He goes, that problem might save them $500,000 a year. To where that $50,000 they just spent that week wasn't that big of a deal. And it's the size of that problem that people are fixing. And that's what we try to relay when we're speaking with people, that they have a problem of no one seeing their stuff.
Right.
And
that goes back to like the ambition of some of the people that you've already interviewed. When I watched your other podcast, was like, they clearly want to be like a big business where they have thousands and thousands of happy customers, and that requires them to do a really good job executing on just their product and what they're delivering. Mm-hmm. But it also means they have to get in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's just an ongoing challenge.
That's just became a business thing that we've become so well aware of. And that's what blows my mind around all of Kansas City is on the marketing agency side, you do not see ads for any of them. They don't run anything on their own companies. They don't do, and if you notice, our ads aren't called action ads. If you ever see our ads, it's brand awareness. We just want people just to know who we are. And if they want to call in, great.
And how many of your clients are from word of mouth? Like a pretty substantial.
A
large amount, yeah.
But it's also that if I go tell Logan that, hey, I'm working with Moss Marketing Group, they're doing a great job for us, you guys should call them. And they're like, well, we see their ads too.
Exactly. They already know who we are. I literally have never seen an ad for another marketing company in Kansas City. I've seen one ad for a marketing company in Louisiana to where their targeting is clearly off.
I will put a lot of money on this. Within a month.
I like to bet.
Within a month, I'll put money on you see other marketing agencies around Kansas City trying to run ads. Because
I think you're also going to reach them in a different way. I mean, they might be running ads to people that are like, on LinkedIn all the time or are in a different channel. And I think that's the crazy advantage of word of mouth in your scenario. It's like there are a lot of business owners that are so busy, so heads down, trying to manage their business, but also operate it. They might be like sweeping the floor at lunch or stacking inventory alongside their hourly employee that they're not on like Twitter getting served 50 ads a day.
They got a lot of hats to wear.
Right. Yeah. So there's a huge percentage of small businesses that no agency will be able to serve unless it's through word of mouth.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a good reputation, not only will they not be your client, but you will never, ever, ever get in front of them.
Yeah. And it's also a lot of times when that business owner reaches out, it's normally to other business owners of who they're using. If I run a business, I'm not going to go walk in to the closest dealership and go ask their sales guys what marketing company they use. They're like, I don't know. Like, I would go after business owners on anybody. Realistically, I mean, on embroidering companies, on different, whatever company I'm going to use, a lot of times I'll call and I'll be speaking with other business owners on who they use. And it becomes a very close network. And I think that's why I also enjoy the Kansas City area and us honing in on our space and being so, just set on one location is because we can bring so much more to that area. And that word of mouth travels very quickly.
Well, it's the word of mouth of the business owners, but it's also the community of the customers that they're building. I think being in the Midwest, being in a place where people, have a strong sense of community, are friends with their neighbors, are asking each other for that type of recommendation.
People around here care about that a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you
I love that.
I do too. And if you don't do right by people, people will know very quickly.
Oh yeah.
And
that will.
And I enjoy that side of it. I enjoy doing right by people. Whatever we can do at any point to make things right. Most of the time, I just never let it get to the spot of it being wrong.
Sure.
And if you just avoid that side of it and you always just do right for people from the very beginning, it's pretty easy.
Yeah.
But I think your end customer also wants that sense of community. And I think that's something that you build through delivering a great product or service. And if you're operating in a geographic market like a lot of your clients are, I think that's one of the biggest ways they set them apart. Like, how do you make, that customer coming in your store or going to your gym, how do you make that the best part of their day? And it might be something really little, but if someone can genuinely look on that experience and be like, you know what, this was a shitty week, but I got to go to X and I got that great meal and that person that knew my name.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is huge. Like that's the difference between someone coming in once because they got a coupon in an ad versus going in every Friday for like 50 years.
Well, that's why my girlfriend goes to a certain nail salon because she went in one day to a bigger one. She's like, great experience, everything. She's like, nails look great. And then she goes the next time. She's like, how can I help you? And they're like,
Terry would be the one that brings up a nail salon.
No, but then she goes into the next one. They're like, oh, Samantha, welcome back. And she's like, you know who I am? It's 3 weeks later.
Yeah, I went to a gym in Miami that launched. I was one of the people that joined their second location right when they opened it, and they had it was very heavily staffed. So they had several people at the front desk, and they would memorize most of the people's names. So when you're going to check in with your key tag, 95% of the time, they would say like, "Oh, I got you. Like, have a good workout and remember your first name."
That's so important. People love to hear their own names.
Yep.
There's nothing people love to hear more than that.
That goes back to, I mean, I did a lot of sales training of that old school automotive sales training stuff. That is the Joe Verdes of the world that most people probably haven't even heard of them anymore. But that was like I was trained by, and that's that hardcore kind of selling. But it was also like when you hear someone's name, you use their name all the time.
Yeah.
And he goes, when you sit with someone and you use their name, they trust you more.
And ask them questions.
Yeah. But it's
also just showing effort.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna provide a high, particularly for high ticket stuff, like if you can't remember my first name, why am I gonna pick you to build a house?
So
like,
now
I'm trusting you with so much money, and you're like, what was that guy's name again that I just signed this thing for? Like, no, it's super basic stuff. Like,
so now there's a problem
well.
there. How do you take that to a nationwide map with New Matter?
It's a super tricky question. Yeah. And it's about delivering a really good customer experience at all the different levels and then creating different content depending on who's buying originally. So one of the interesting insights we've had super early is a lot of the initial purchasers have been like women buying it for their boyfriends and husbands.
Yeah.
Because part of the whole trend in like hair care and skincare is a lot of girls want their significant other to have like take better care of their hair and skin, but they don't know of any of the brands to recommend, and they're not just going to like keep buying different stuff at a retail store. So we create different content, and we'll continue to work with different groups of influencers. Relatively soon, we're going to start working with female influencers that are recommending it to female audiences.
I think that's a phenomenal idea because, I mean, I'm the prime one. Madison would probably love for me to use more high-end stuff.
Quit using
Same
it
with
up.
my
But
girlfriend.
I don't know that stuff, and most time when she's brought it up, I'm fooled by packaging, normally at a store. That's probably just a simpler packaging, so you assume that's more high line and it's more expensive.
Yeah, and packaging matters. I mean, you care how it looks in your house, but I think it's a combination of things, and it's thinking about how do you make sure that all of that experience is really good.
Yeah.
The biggest thing in our space is like either you have a convenient product and you're really inexpensive, or you have an expensive product and it's really difficult for the customer to find, and it's hard to get it delivered. So I think we're just trying to be an in-between where it's like these are simple, very high-quality products with a great customer experience.
Have you thought about a subscription style deal, but after the fact of them trying it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we have an email flow that's a renewal flow that does subscription later, and our subscription option is crazy flexible. So you can do any time frame, you can pause your subscription, you can gift your subscription to a friend, so you can literally put in a different shipping address as a one-off, and then the next one will come back to you.
So you're telling me Dane could get a subscription and send it directly to me?
I'm not
and then
sending
to me
you
the
mine,
next
but
month.
Yeah, sure.
It's going to be from me, bud.
100%. So
I'm just hypothetical.
It's about just like, do you actually want that? How quickly did you go through the product? And making sure that you're just doing that for the customer, because people don't want to run out of things, and they also don't want like 6 of them.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times too, that subscription out the gate, once again, you're saying they're being fooled on products that aren't good. If I have a quality product, then I'd be perfectly fine saying, hey, I'll take on a subscription all the time. This is a product I like. I'm going to use it. I shower every single day. I like to have it here.
Well, I sort of think it's also, when you think about pricing and what you experienced with, when you started out offering a really low price and then you were getting clients that didn't really want to invest in marketing or maybe weren't as serious about growing your business. I mean, you can tell a lot of the clients that you have are working really hard, like regardless of what you're taking care of on the business side for them. Yeah. They're also just really hard workers. And I think that's a weird thing in advertising where if you're doing a crazy discount to find people, like, is that really your customer? If you got them to order because you offered something for 80% less than retail, like think about that in any other market. It's so weird that happens in consumer goods. If there was a fancy restaurant and the first email you ate at it was $15 and then the next second meal and on was $100, that makes no sense.
That in my mind always makes me, every time I see one of those, I'm like, what are your profit margins? Once I left college,
some of them still don't make money. They're just losing money.
When I went to college, they say you should make X amount profit to have a successful business, like per product. And when I sit there and I look at,
really teaches you much about that, but
I mean, it
us
gives you
three had a very different experience.
Yeah,
than this guy,
we probably take David's knowledge on
no,
this.
but just looking at that, the first thing I think is when they're like, "Oh, buy this for $15," and then it gradually increase them. So then I'm like, what if they were making profit on that first, and then you're paying
That would be rare.
90% more.
Yeah.
A lot of companies lose money to acquire new customers.
And it's also kind of, it's the exact same thing when it comes to Kansas City's restaurant week, where I do not go out during restaurant week. Like,
I do.
I order it to go.
But even those are like moderate offers. That's like, here's a
it's
limited
still like
menu.
$30-$40.
But they have
Here's
like
a limited menu that's a little off. It's not like 85% off.
Yeah.
They have these.
I
like,
would be more inclined to go.
But Dre would just be there with like 8 steaks.
You'd have a tent set up out front waiting for him to open.
But they have these crazy offers that they acquire customers 1 week out of the year to these high-end restaurants. Is that really a customer?
And it could be. It just depends on like, did I actually find a new person that is going to end up caring more about this? And I think that's a really interesting challenge for us as a business, because I think there's 2 different sets of customers. There's guys that are already say, I want to take a little bit better care of my hair and skin. I care about that aspect of my appearance. I think of it as like the third aspect of your appearance, right? If you go to the gym, you want to wear clothes you feel good about, and then the third thing can be like your hair and your skin, right? But there's people that are already seeking that out, and then there are a lot of guys that I think would purchase that product but are not quite there yet. And I think it's an interesting question of like, do you get someone to care more about what you're selling over time? And then also, how do you get the people that are already have a problem that you're solving directly for them today? And that's what those restaurants I think are trying to do, which is like, maybe these people do want to go out to eat more often and have a nicer dining experience, but it's a challenge as a business owner to know, am I getting that right person? And if so, how do I get them such a good experience that they decide like, you know what, this is the place I'm going to go on out for a date. Yeah. Like that was kind of a one-time thing during a busy week, but you know what, like that waiter was so cool and we had such a good time and great conversation and cool, location, good ambiance inside the restaurant. It's a bigger question and a harder question as a business owner, I think.
Yeah, I think that question is probably different for every restaurant out there, every business owner. On kind of that marketing space, what are a lot of the avenues that you and your company have used on distribution of product?
Yeah, so first I'll start with talking about like the company we were at before was mostly a wholesale business. So 80 or 90% retail revenue, selling to large buyers, chains of barbershops and salons, things of that nature. The tricky thing about that, if you're trying to sell a really, really premium product, is like you lose a little bit of the control of the customer experience because you're not communicating with them in that scenario. So you're hoping that the retailer is getting that information across to your end customer. And sometimes they can. Sometimes they do a good job at that. And sometimes it doesn't work at all. And that's part of your balance if you're a wholesale brand. What we're trying to build for, we think, is this next customer that really wants the ultimate experience. And we think that can kind of only happen directly or eventually through retail that we would own. It's unlikely for it to happen through third-party retail. Could change, but we really want to focus on knowing our customers on a really close level so that we can go above and beyond with all the aspects of the experience. And as a retail brand or an online retail brand, there are a bunch of different ways to do that, right? A lot of it's content, a lot of it's education, but a lot of it's also making the experience really seamless, taking care of when you're looking at the customer journey, making sure that they're going through flows that are not confusing them or throwing them off at all, and things like that. But it's a huge, broad range of activities that you're doing that have to do with customer acquisition, customer service, and then having a really high quality product. I think there was a huge group of brands that launched 3 or 4 years ago that I think a lot of people probably saw on Instagram a lot, that had very similar aesthetics and super similar price points and great marketing and a really so-so product. So you would get this sick ad and you would order it, and then it took like kind of a long time to get to you, and then you would use it and you would be like, this thing does not work at all, right? And that was not a good customer experience. And that means that a lot of those companies would have high attrition. So ultimately, I don't want to acquire a customer through an ad that's going to order 1 bottle of shampoo for me. Like, that's not even remotely our goal. I want to have a customer order our products, have an amazing result, say like, this is the best I've ever felt about my appearance. You know, it gave me confidence in my job. It gave me confidence to go on that date, whatever it might be, and say like, you know, as long as this is something that I care about at all, like this is by far the best offering. That's kind of the goal.
So without most of the people we've had on here, things like that, have retail space, different things of that nature. You guys are 100% B2C online. What are you doing to acquire those customers marketing-wise?
Yes, so we're taking a diverse approach in that we're using a bunch of different channels and then also working with influencers and press and things of that nature, where kind of like one of our next big pushes is to get a lot of people to give kind of like semi-unsponsored reviews of the products and compare them to things that people are familiar with. Because the consistent feedback we've gotten from our first kind of group of customers is like, they're blown away at the product quality. And that's a difficult thing to communicate sometimes, because if you think about the copy that would be in an ad, it might sound similar to a mass market brand that's really delivering like an affordable but not really high quality product.
Yeah.
So there's some consumer fatigue, I would call it, where like people have read that promise over and over again. And you probably run into it when you're selling into businesses where you're like, you know what, we're going to get you a lot of more customers in your door. Yeah. Automate all this stuff for you, and then they're like, "Yeah."
Everyone tells me that.
Sure, you are, bud.
So, exactly,
and that's where the billing in the rear, all these other things that we have, kind of try to break that,
and the word of mouth. So I think what we're really planning and starting to execute on, starting our launch was like, it's finding those people that already want that better product, which you've found with your clients, and then over delivering for them to get that next word of mouth piece. So it's like genuinely doing the best job possible, and then also capitalizing on like, hey, if anyone has any of these similar needs or problems that you're solving for them, you're just by far the thing that people feel comfortable recommending.
It snowballs really quickly.
Yeah.
And I know we've spoke about you running Facebook ads, Instagram ads. You're getting into TikTok and working with influencers and different things of that nature. What kind of recommendations would you have to people on understanding that space?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's changing super rapidly. So like, something that literally worked 60 days ago might not anymore. And that even goes for people that are like super experienced or way higher level than wherever you're at. You know, there's always someone better than you. There are media buyers and content creators and stuff that are still struggling with that question of like, what do I create next, right? But I think the biggest thing is figuring out, you know, who are the trusted people for your product or service? Like, who is someone that they would go to where it's like that recommendation actually carries weight, and does that person make a crazy amount of recommendations and is constantly doing sponsorship deals, or are they more selective? And like, you can kind of trust that if they work with someone, you know, it's a product that they actually enjoy. And we do that, you know, when I do outreach to influencers. If someone doesn't enjoy their products, I don't want them to promote it, because I think it'll come across as disingenuous. Like, if you don't enjoy or you don't think that we've provided like a super high quality of service, then I have no desire for you to be an ambassador for our brand.
They're there for the paycheck.
Right. Yeah. And there are a lot of influencers that do that. But I think it becomes obvious over time. And I don't think, you know, I think you can really tell. And there are influencers that do both, where like they are a good content creator and they do want to make a career of that, but also they are being discerning about what they recommend. And that's definitely a sweet spot to hit. But I think it's about working with the people that have some expertise in your category. You know, think about your business and think about who is the enthusiast customer, and then having them say, you know what, I've tried a bunch of whatever it is that you're selling, and here's why I really like this one, and here's who it's for, and also here's who it's not for. It's super okay as a business to not be for everyone, right?
Yeah, and I think
you will not be all things to all people.
Yeah, and I think it's taken us a little while to identify that, that there are people that we're priced out of their price point for.
Yeah, and that's okay. But if you discounted so much, you wouldn't be able to deliver the same quality of product or service.
100%.
So you have to acknowledge, like, I'm not going to deliver an inferior product or an inferior experience to get a customer that I know is going to be mad at me. Like, we realized that when there were lots of inexpensive but well-marketed brands launching. There was a hilarious ad I remember seeing before we even started this brand, where it was like, the product was like $8.99, and then there was the first comment that had been on the ad was like, this is a scam because I buy a competitor's product that's $6.99. I just thought to myself, like, holy shit, that is not a scam. It might be slightly more expensive and you might not like it, but that doesn't mean if you're arguing over like that incremental thing, the same way if like you have a business come in that wants like a $20 discount on a piece of content or something, it's probably not going to work because you have to do something super well. Like people are looking for lots of differentiation. Either you have to be by far the cheapest or by far the best at what you do. I think the middle ground is really hard, honestly. Where you're like a little bit better at something, but you also can't afford to communicate it to people is a tough spot to be in.
I've had that talk with multiple businesses where they're like, well, if you could offer at this price, we'd sign up today. I'm like, we don't want to be at that price. Yeah. I'm like, we are also very similar to your business where we are here to make money. And I'm like,
and it's also something that particularly if business owners are listening to this, do not be ashamed to have margin in what you sell or provide. Because margin is how you pay your bills, it's how you pay your mortgage, and it's how you do a better job at developing new products and services. This idea that you're going to be like a high quality product with no margin literally just means that you're going to go under. Like that is not...
Profit's not a bad word.
No, and it enables you to go out and do more. Maybe it enables you to create another location so that your favorite customer doesn't have to drive far enough. Yep. Or part of our, we take a huge hit on shipping because we ship things quickly. Well, you're paying for that. Like it would be cheaper for me to ship things over like 2 weeks, of course, but I don't think my customer wants that experience.
I had a conversation yesterday with someone on the phone that they're like, well, what does this additional money go to? I'm like, we monitor your ads every single day. Hey, we're adjusting target audiences. We're doing all this stuff day over day. And you paying this money, us acquiring accounts, is to where we can handle more staffing to watch this stuff every single day.
And keep producing content and editing in-house.
Exactly. So I'm like, how many people do you call that they do all their content in-house? Right. You're not gonna find someone.
No one
else.
in Kansas City,
but
besides us.
That's the exact same thing that when you're.
Well, I think that's an interesting thing too as an agency. Sorry,
no, go for it.
Interrupt you, but I think there's a huge push to create a huge volume of content because this is an uncertain time in marketing. So people are like, let's just produce crazy amounts of stuff and see what sticks. And there is something to that, but I think the problem is a lot of agencies offer that with like no direction around what it should be. And particularly for a business that's in a community, your offering is more unique than you think, probably. And you have to get that story across. So the idea that you're just going to outsource content to someone that doesn't understand your community or why you're different for that area is it's unlikely that they'll execute on that well.
We've worked with companies that like, well, I'm just going to pay somebody for content to come in. It's going to be cheaper than you guys, and then we're going to handle our own ads and do all this stuff. And I watch those people go straight downhill. Because first off, these content people have no earthly idea what message they're trying to get across. So you have a message of what makes your product, your service, whatever it is that you're offering so valuable. And they don't know how to relay that via video. And we talk to business owners all the time that you have ad style video and then you have website style video. You have different styles of video. We are never putting a video on Facebook that's a minute and a half, 2 minutes long.
Marketing is selling a story. You have to know what story you're trying to tell before you make the video.
Yeah, and we work so hard on that strategy of what message needs to be relayed, how we're going to convert people down funnel to that call to action, things like that. And I think you and I talk a lot about that all the time, about how crucial that is in the content space. You know that from, once again, being on a coast, that content is king.
Well, I think that's also one of the easiest things to get lost in kind of the hecticness of running either an early stage startup or particularly a small business where it's an owner operator where they're doing both roles, is like their story is probably more unique than they think. Like even in just the first 5 podcasts I watched that you guys did, like these people have phenomenal stories that if you're entering that business in a really busy time, they're not able to sit down for 45 minutes and tell you all of this thought that went into what is now their life's work. And that's an awesome story, and it makes you feel connected as the customer. Like, it's cool to be a part of something. Everyone wants to be a part of something. That's why people like local stuff, is like, oh, I knew that place where it was only one location, or I knew that place when they were only offering these 4 sandwiches, and now they have 10 shops, or they, whatever it is. It doesn't matter the category.
Those ones are the easiest to market and grow.
When I call people and I talk to them about businesses, if they're not looking to grow and grow something big and do all that, we really don't want to work with them.
Right.
And it sounds bad in kind of a way, but it's also, if you're just looking to be stagnant and not do a whole lot, we don't have that desire, because you're never going to be anything. We can provide you as many leads as you could possibly want. If you're not going to do anything with them, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
And we've worked with businesses like that they get this huge influx and like, well, we don't want to do that. We want to pass it on to this person. They're not doing a good job. And then they just start pointing fingers at everyone. And realistically, now I look back on it, I saw those things before they ever happened. It was my fault. Like, we were wanting to take on accounts, we were wanting to do this stuff, but we're becoming a lot more selective on who we work with. And
well, because it's a partnership. If your customer doesn't find success, they can't spend more with you.
no,
So it's the same situation that I'm in, where you're not trying to get 30 to 60 days of revenue from a customer.
no, that doesn't.
Your
change
best
our lives.
customer will be someone that's with you for like 5 or 10 years. And that changes your incentives, it changes your goals, it changes your values around.
That company that grows over 5 to 10 years, I tell every company we start with, the day we start with them, we don't run contracts for 2 reasons. If you don't want to work with us, you don't have to. Also, when you get really busy, you're going to want to spend more money with us. And most of the time, they like kind of grin at me when I say that, but they all increase budget over time. When they see that it's working, that's another reason why I never worry about getting paid.
Right.
If it works, guess who the first person paid every single month is? It's always us.
Mm-hmm.
We never worry about that. Only time we ever had a problem is somebody doesn't have supplies, doesn't have a product to sell. And once again, my fault. I had all the insights. I didn't look into it deep enough.
But inventory is hard.
Live and learn.
We're really
Live and learn.
fortunate. I know we got to wrap relatively soon, but we're really fortunate to produce everything domestically. Even our plastics and our packaging are produced in North America, in Canada and California, which is more expensive, but it means that you have more control over quality, and it means that we have stuff in stock ready to sell, and it's not on a shipping container outside of Los Angeles somewhere. I mean,
sitting out in water somewhere.
and there are national retailers and national brands right now that are like having a really hard time because they can't get stuff. And it's at some point there's very little that they can do about it. So if you can afford to, I think manufacturing domestically is it's an ethical thing to do. It's good for the community, good to create jobs, but it also makes it easier to do a high quality offering in my mind.
I know I'm not creating like actual physical product, but if we were 100%, I would create 100% everything in the U.S.
Yeah.
But I think that holds a lot of merit to itself also.
Right.
That you care about those jobs that brings, everything like that.
Yeah.
That you're not shortchanging it for a cheaper price overseas.
Right. And it allows you to know that the workers, have actual jobs that they enjoy and are relying on. And I mean, our products are made in a facility that's inspected by the FDA. They're doing quality control at the ingredient level, when it's filled, when it's packaged. Like, it's almost like a supplement or a pharmaceutical operation. I mean, it's a totally different level than like someone where it's like a phone number and, there's no photo inside the factory and they're like 70% less and everything. That is not the situation.
And the marketing spaces really came to the same thing.
Sure.
That we have acquired so many accounts that work with companies that are in a different location than the Midwest United States, that everyone that's doing their work is from third world countries that do not live here, and they're subbing it out overseas. It's one person, probably lives in some big penthouse down in Florida or something, and they're just subbing stuff out to companies all over the country.
And there's some scenarios where that can work, but you would have to be unbelievably good at managing it. And it would also rely on you being able to recruit someone remotely. So when you think about how hard it is to hire a good employee from your neighborhood, what you're really betting on with that person is that they are skillful enough to hire a really good employee in another country.
But what they do, though, is they set these people up on contracts. And we're acquiring the accounts once their contracts are ending. And this is the other thing I do not agree with on a lot of marketing agencies that we've even sat down and met with. Their whole business model is set up in to acquire more accounts in a 12-month span than their cancellation is in a 12-month span. So they know that they have a cancellation, but these people are running teams that aren't a whole lot larger than ourselves, and 90% of them are sales.
Really?
That they're selling
So
all.
they're not executing on their service at all.
Oh no, they know
And they don't care to.
and they know that their service doesn't work. Like right out the gate, they understand their service doesn't work. They understand all this stuff, but they're like, if you have a sales team large enough, you can acquire more accounts than your cancellations are every 12 months. And I just like sit with these people, and it gives me like the heebie-jeebies. It really pisses
Your
me off.
heebie-jeebie word, bro.
It pisses me off a lot.
Their motto is, as long as April of 2022 is better than April of 2021, we will stay in business.
And they don't care who those accounts are that made that company better.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's where I just think that is like the most terrible business model I've ever seen in my life, and I hate
definitely
it.
is.
And it like
It's unethical.
it,
It's wrong.
I don't think that's right to do to people. Like, and I think once again, you're a product that you could go out and probably get some catchy marketing going and all this stuff and have a terrible product. Those people that I know exactly who you're talking about 3 years ago, and you don't see any ads for those people anymore. We talked about those exact same people when you were getting into this, and when you brought that up, I hadn't even thought of it in probably 2 years.
Yeah.
And now that you say something, I haven't seen an ad from those people in I don't know when.
I think if you're not building a brand or a company to last 15 years or 25 years or 50 years, you're really not building it to last at all.
No.
Like either you're really delivering something that people want and you're charging for it so that you can grow and sustain everything, or you're not.
Yeah. And I knew this podcast with you was going to go longer.
Yeah.
Like, we're watching our time over there,
Yeah.
and it's much longer than anticipated, but I could sit here with
Always
you
good conversations.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
We
guys
could
having
sit
me on. Yeah.
talk with you for hours. But
What's that end goal for you guys? Talking about that. Where do you see yourself?
I want us to be the largest brand in the men's space in general, which is a crazy big goal. But I think
no goal is too big.
Hell yeah.
None.
right now, most of the volume, if you look at the dollars spent in the market, tend heavily towards retail and low end. I think there are a huge number of consumer trends that are changing that. And I think we are going to be by far the best premium brand in the space, and our goal is to just own that side of the category entirely.
I 100% know that you're going to do that.
I do too.
Thank you.
No ifs,
That's-
and buts about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
When you come on the next time and you are that largest brand, we'll have you on like maybe like 3 times.
I can come before
as
then.
you tier up.
No, when you're there, you gotta come back onto that.
We'll be like,
That's a
remember,
long journey.
It's a good
Yeah.
thing we went to high school with David, so we could get him on the first time, and the second time, and the last time.
Yeah.
But once again, huge thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I'll be back, hopefully.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. And I think that is the end to the M3 podcast
Where-
today. Long episode.
Where can people find
Oh, yeah.
your product?
I do forget this sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. Newmatter.com. When does this air?
Monday.
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 Moss Marketing Group Mondays.
Moss Marketing Group Monday. Yeah. So newmatter.com, free 3-day shipping across the country, money back guarantee if you don't love the product, and use Moss Marketing for $10 off your first order.
Ooh.
There we go. There we go.
Moss Marketing Group.
Shampoo. What is
Moss
it?
Marketing
Shampoo,
Group.
Face wash.
Yeah, we have 4 products now. So we just launched our second 2 products. So we have a face cleanser, face lotion, shampoo, and body wash. But the shampoo and body wash have an exfoliant in it, so it feels kind of like gritty when you use it, and it cleans
I like that.
I love that.
2 elements: the actual formula and then the scrub that's in it as well. Super good for your hair and skin. Really, really good for you.
So we have all these products here. Their content is phenomenal. Marketing is solid. Once again, we will put the link below for all of your stuff.
Thanks.
And that is the M3 podcast. Key Ricky.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.